Today we're going to be talking about the S21 FE versus the S10 Plus here. Just going to be going over the pros and cons of upgrading. Which device should you get here? So let's go ahead and get started. So the S21 FE will come in at about $700. And then the S10 Plus you can actually find for around $300, and I'll have those links down below. They also have a pretty good deals going on, good trade-in deals from Samsung for the S21 FE. On Amazon you get a $100 gift card, so you got some pretty good deals for that as well. And as far as the hardware goes, now this is kind of like an awkward thing because the S10 Plus actually has the more premium feel to it. It's actually a full glass and metal device. The S21 FE is a metal rails, but it has a plastic back here. Now it is a really nice looking phone. It still feels premium, but just not as premium as a full glass and metal. But the pros and cons of that is that the plastic is hard to crack. Glass is really easy to crack if you drop it. But as far as build quality, they both look and feel really nice here. And as far as size, the S21 FE is definitely the thicker device, and definitely just a little bit heavier as well. You will notice a hardware difference, and there is a headphone jack on the S10 Plus, and there is no headphone jack on the S21 FE. So that is a big deal if you depend on the headphone jack. Now let's go ahead and talk about the displays on these two devices here. The S21 FE has a dynamic AMOLED display. It's 120Hz HDR10 Plus at 6.4 inches. It's 1080p 411 for the PPI, 85.3% screen to body ratio. The S10 Plus has also a 6.4 inch display, dynamic AMOLED HDR10 Plus, but there is no high refresh rate on the S10 Plus. This actually has an 88.9% screen to body ratio, so it has that more bezel-less feel to it. And then you do have a 1440p display with 522 for the PPI. So basically you will see some differences right off the bat. The double punch hole versus the single punch hole. The pro to the double punch hole is obviously you get that ultra wide camera. And then, some people just prefer the Samsung moved away from it, so I'm assuming most people prefer the single punch hole here. But that is also a nice thing to have, that double camera punch hole. Also, guys, 1440p versus the 1080p panel, you could definitely tell the difference if you pull up a 2K video on YouTube. It just looks sharper. So the S10 Plus is definitely the sharper display here, but it just feels much smoother with the 120Hz on the S21 FE. So you do have those sort of pros and cons. The S10 Plus with the higher res display, and then the S21 FE with a very good display as well, but it has that high refresh rate, so that's also something to consider. Me personally, I definitely like the S21 FE's display a little bit more here, just for the 120Hz. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into a little speed test here, but let's talk about the specs first. So we have the Snapdragon 888 processor on here, Adreno 660, no SD card support, so you lose SD card support with this phone. And then you also have 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. The S10 Plus, on the other hand, it does have the Snapdragon 855, and then you also have the Adreno 640. You do get micro SD support on this phone. So if you download a lot of games, movies, pictures, videos, you do have that extra storage on here. You also have the 128 gigs and 8 gigs of RAM on this version here. So as far as speed, we shouldn't see actually too big of a difference, and as far as gaming, they are actually pretty much on par here. So we'll go ahead and relaunch Subway Surf here. So a bit of a difference there. S21 FE definitely faster there, but it's not crazy fast. So are you getting a super crazy upgrade here as far as speed goes? They're pretty much like, you can see the S21 FE just slightly faster. And as far as the gaming performance, let's go ahead and launch PUBG here. Now, gaming performance on here is going to be pretty much the same. Honestly, they play PUBG at the same exact settings. Smooth Extreme, HDR Extreme. You can go all the way up to Ultra HD. It is pretty much the same on both of these phones here. So, you know, eventually they could bring the 90 frames to PUBG for Samsung devices, which would make this a better buy, but it just hasn't came yet. But just know that, you know, regardless of which phone that you go with, gaming performance is pretty much still on par here. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about a few additional things. So the S21 FE, since it just came out, it'll get 3 full years of software updates, then another 4 years of security patches. The S10 Plus will get the Android 12 update, and then it will get also 4 years of security patches. So you will get more major OS updates with the S21 FE here. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the additional features here. You do still have very fast fingerprint scanner on both of these phones, just a tap on the fingerprint scanner. They both work very well, so no issues with that. You also have face unlock on both of these phones. You do have reverse wireless charging on the S10 Plus, which is a really nice feature to have, and you also have it on the S21 FE. Samsung desktop support is on here. It's also on this device. So as far as software wise, you're not really missing out on, you know, a lot of stuff here. Like I said, the biggest differences with these two phones is that the headphone jack, SD card support. This no headphone jack, no SD card support. So that is, you know, something. But with this phone, you get the faster chipset. You also get, to me, much better cameras. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Alright, so the cameras on the S21 Plus, it is a triple camera setup. It's a 12 megapixel standard, an 8 megapixel telephoto that does 3x optical zoom, then a 12 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K 60, 32 megapixel selfie that also shoots in 4K 60. Basically, the cameras on the S21 FE are much better. Obviously, it's just a newer phone. It's just better lenses in here, better color, just better dynamic range. Overall, just better low light shots. It is definitely a step up in the camera department for sure there. So that could be another reason to consider upgrading. But the S10 Plus actually has a pretty good camera. If you guys have seen the you know, the videos I've been putting out on it. Triple camera setup, 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, but this one does 2x optical zoom, 16 megapixel ultra wide, does 4K 60 on the front and back, and then that 10 megapixel selfie cam, and then the 8 megapixel wide cam for the selfie. So you know, the S10 Plus takes some pretty great photos. Also, you have to take into consideration the price of the S10 Plus. It still takes really good photos at this price point, which I think is pretty impressive. So, you know, as far as image quality goes, they both do a great job, but the S21 FE is definitely going to be a nice step up. Alright, so let's go ahead and check out these speakers here. Max volume, we both got Dolby Atmos on. Start with the S21. Yeah, so you definitely have a cleaner sound on the S21 FE. Here it's a slightly louder as well. Yeah. So this top speaker is much better than the top speaker on the S10 Plus. It's giving that, this is just a much cleaner sound here. It's just giving you a louder, cleaner sound there. Also, forgot to check those Geekbench scores. You can see here's the multi-core score. Here's that single core score as well too for you guys. So let's go ahead and just talk about battery life. So I did a battery drain test, a PUBG battery drain test. The S21 FE did a much better job. It has a slightly bigger battery. Here it's got a 4500 milliamp battery, 25 watt charging, 15 watt wireless charging, reverse wireless charging. S10 Plus still did a great job with that test as well. They both have good battery life. This one is just slightly better. It has a 4100 milliamp battery, 15 watt charging, wireless charging, reverse wireless charging. So, you know, overall, your battery experience is going to be good actually on both, but just you will have a slight, you know, upgrade in terms of screen on time. So that's pretty much it. Which device do you guys prefer? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.